Welcome to the Intentional Leaders Podcast, the show that helps leaders gain clarity, build emotional agility, and create more meaningful impact without sacrificing themselves. I'm your host, Cindy Wetland. Leadership today is being tested like never before. Rapid changes, generational differences, and a growing disconnect between leaders and those they serve. Too often, leadership focuses on managing roles and tasks rather than truly seeing the human beings behind them. Today's guest speaks directly to that challenge. Susan Inouye is the author of Leadership's Perfect Storm, where she illuminates the reality of modern leadership, especially those generational dynamics that are shaping today's workplace. She's also a powerful advocate for Sawubona leadership, which is rooted in the Zulu greeting that means, I see you. In today's episode, you'll learn why discovering the unique gifts of people around you is essential to effective leadership and why this practice is essential, especially right now. Practical ideas you can also use immediately to take intentional action as a leader. Let's begin. All right. Well, welcome today, Susan. I am so excited to have this podcast interview, especially based on our first conversation where I got to meet you and understand a little bit about your background. So thank you for taking your time to be here today.
Oh, thank you for inviting me, Cindy. And thank you for being so thoughtful and in really kind of talking to me and researching this subject.
Yeah. Well, I was very intrigued by it. And so, for the studio audience, Susan is the author of a book that I know you're all going to want to get it because it's called Leadership's Perfect Storm. And it is about the connection and illuminates modern leadership. And I know that I work with so many people, and so many of you in the audience are of maybe a different generation than millennials. And you're thinking, how do I lead people differently? How do I think differently? How do I act differently? How do I show up when I wasn't trained or raised in the ways that really are expected today and that we need to do purposefully? So thank you for all the research you've done into this for sure. So one of the key things that you talk about is Salvano leadership, and that emerged while you were thinking about cohesive way to help leaders remember what really matters. And so what are the core principles of that leadership, and why do you think that creates such a powerful effect in organizations?
Yeah, I think it's important to for me to kind of establish the history because
Yes.
it was really the reason I was attracted to it was because it was a leadership style that was grounded in proven results.
Yeah.
And Sawubona leadership was actually born out of the millennial generation.
Mm.
It was created by a former CEO, Tony LaRay, who sold a very successful business and decided to follow a passion, which was helping inner city millennial youth.
Mm.
And he started a nonprofit called Youth Mentoring Connection. When I met him through an executive client of mine. And at the time, I was getting calls, Cindy, every day from executives complaining about their young people. And
Yeah.
at the time, it was millennials.
Yes.
And I mean, things like who would quit their job without another one to go to?
Right.
you
Like
know,
that's weird.
yeah. So there was so much pain and
Yeah.
suffering that I had to help them. And
Yes.
so I was looking for something that was not just based in theory and academics, but really grounded in proven results. So
Yeah.
my client knew I was looking, called me one day and said, I found your answer. He took me to the ghettos of South Central Los Angeles, if you can believe it,
Mm.
to
Yes.
find my answer. And he introduced me to Tony. Now, what I loved about his story was he went into the community. He
Yeah.
asked these young people, what would it take to engage with you? And for the more than a decade, when I met him, he was a decade into this. He had been listening and he created what he called the gift centered approach. And the gift centered approach was at the heart of the way he led, which he called Sawubona. And Sawubona is Zulu for I see you, as in seeing the whole person. Now, he he also, I found out statistic wise, because they kept statistics on this, that he had transformed and saved the lives of thousands of inner city youth through his mentoring program with unprecedented results.
Wow.
And he invited me to a mentoring session. And I said, yes, okay. I went there. I was taken aback. I
Mm.
mean, here was a community of people of different generations, genders, ethnic backgrounds, and the deep connection that they had with one each other, and the way that they engaged each other that brought out the best in who they were. I remember at the end of the evening, I went up to him and said, I need you to mentor me in this because I need to take it into the corporate world. And
Yeah.
he got really excited because I saw a
Yes.
way of not only helping my execs, but creating cultures of belonging.
Sure.
Yeah. And so over 13 years ago,
Gosh.
I did take it into the corporate world. I started to turn around companies and cultures in a way that became long term and sustainable.
Yeah.
And today it is in over Sawubona, and the gift centered approach is in over 30 countries. And it was the subject of my book, Leadership's Perfect Storm: What Millennials Are Teaching Us About
Yes.
Possibility, Passion, and Purpose. And we were
Oh,
just fortunately, the end of 2018, it just hit the #1 bestseller in leadership and business management.
exciting.
Yeah.
Oh, how exciting.
Yeah.
Oh, how fun. Well, and to be able, I think what's really fascinating about your story too is you got to experience that in real time. You got to
Yes.
experience the effect of leadership practices and principles that connect people. But to feel that, I can't imagine how powerful that was. And that desire to like, how do I bring this to more people? How do I bring it into the corporate
Right.
world?
Right. 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 Right.
Because corporate worlds need it so desperately.
Right.
Right? The connection with each other.
Well, yeah, they do. And we can go into a whole conversation about this in regards to AI, because as
Oh, yes.
as AI eliminates jobs, it's
Yes.
actually revealing what is required of leadership. And it's not about delivering answers. It's
Yeah.
about connecting with people and deeper
Yeah.
relationships, and all the touchy-feely stuff that was mocked as unimportant becomes very important today.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
it's what makes us be able to compete with AI.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Well,
Right,
and I think there's a complement of the education or the expertise or the consolidation of information that can be helpful. It's never going to replace that human touch. It's
oh,
never going to be able to replace the connections
that's
that we have with each other and the powerful effect of that, for sure.
right, right,
So, as you think about that divide, then those generational differences, and I experienced that a lot with people that I work with. I just had a call with a client today, and she said, this is tough. People are leading how they were taught to lead and how they led, 20 years ago, 25 years ago. And now they kind of feel like, well, hey, it's my turn. It's my turn to tell people what to do. And it's my turn to kind of boss them around because that's how I was treated. And I just kind of chuckled, and I knew, like, hey, I get to talk to Susan this afternoon about this very topic, right? And it was so ironic. But what did you learn that shifted your understanding of those generational divides? What do you see
yeah,
that
yeah. And
misunderstood?
so, first of all, I think that as generations, we were brought up in different eras. And in
Yeah.
those eras, there were different events that influence the generational lens through which we see the world.
Yes.
We forget, and by the way, we think that our generational lens is the lens that everyone should see the world. And we
Of
forget
course.
that other generations were born in a different decade and they were influenced by different events.
Yeah.
And so we have to be very careful of getting stuck in our generational lens
Yeah.
and in the generalities that are made of generations, because it cuts us off from knowing the person.
Yeah.
And the power of Sawubona leadership is we don't look through a generational lens, we look through a human lens, because it cuts through all the generalities to look at the human being.
Yeah.
Sawubona, which means it's Zulu for I see you, as in seeing the whole person.
Yeah.
We find that every person wants to be seen and accepted for who they are, no matter what generation, gender, ethnic background, because it's not a generational need, it's a human need.
Yeah.
And we found that when we see and accept people for who they are, they see and accept us for who we are. And then a different conversation unfolds. One where we're not lecturing to each other, but one where we're listening and learning from each other.
Yeah.
So there is a book by W. Ross Ashby called Introduction to Cybernetics. And in it, he talks about the law of requisite variety, that in any ecosystem, the entity with the widest ranges of responses will thrive.
Oh.
And I think, and I think we know as
Yeah.
human beings that we need diversity, that we need diverse
Yes.
opinions and thoughts, but we get stuck in our own egos.
Yes.
And for generations, it's sometimes hard for a generation to take advice from a younger generation.
Yes, of course it is.
Right. And this
Yeah.
is why Sawubona is so powerful, because it says, don't look at the generation, look through the human lens and start by seeing the gift in a person, because the gift is what we were born to bring naturally into the world. It's what we do without thinking about it. It's just who we are. And if we see people's gifts, there's so many things that follow. We know what motivates them, what drives them. We know how they see the world. And as leaders, it allows us to be able to put them in areas where they excel so their gifts blossom. It allows us to be able to coach them in a different way rather than in our way, right?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. And
So
go
go
ahead.
ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I'm so fascinated by that because I think it makes sense. Like, let's treat each person as a human being and discover what they're good at, what the gifts are, and everybody brings something to the table. I think what's challenging about that, what was going through my head as you were saying it, is our brains naturally judge and they judge very quickly. And that's what creates all the stereotypes and biases we have is that those unconscious patterns. And now we're saying, okay, you gotta really observe those thoughts, those perspectives, and then let some of that go in order to embrace this concept that you're saying and that you're talking about, which I totally believe in. So, how do we fight those unconscious or subconscious biases and voices in our head that we have? For example, like, oh, they're younger than me. They don't have as much experience. Of course, they don't know what they're talking about. Or they've never been in this industry, or they have never been, they haven't been where I've been, so they don't know. How do we get beyond that?
So this is where I guess okay, so there's a lot to unpack here. So let me start. Okay, so let me start by saying that I'll go into the way that I work, which is understanding that we don't change in our minds, we change in our bodies. That unless we change the way we feel in our bodies, we don't permanently transform.
Yeah.
And so what this means is this. If we want to become patient and we have the insight or awareness that someone told us we need to be more patient, like you need to stop looking at generations like this, okay?
Yes.
That's an insight.
Yeah.
But until we do practices on a continuous basis that let us embody what it feels like to be patient, we never form the habits that lead to our competency where we're naturally patient and not acting it. And transformation is not an act, it's a true expression of who you are.
Yeah.
And so this is why it's important to do what we call the deep somatic work. And this is not working on the body, it's being connected in. Because when we do deep somatic work, it allows us to then form new habits that lead to new competencies.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so for example, can I give you an example of like one of my clients maybe?
Yes, please.
Okay.
That would be great. I would love it.
Yeah. So what I mean by this is that I was called in to work with the head of production of an event planning company. I'll call her Beth.
Okay.
And Beth was on the verge of burnout. Okay. And one of her core gifts was planning. Okay, she's an event planning company, right?
Hey, that's good.
So there wasn't anything that Beth did not plan.
Yeah.
She, everything. And it was also a way for her to control things.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, to plan it.
Yeah.
Now, this didn't suit her people very well, especially her young people, because they didn't feel heard and seen for their ideas. Because
Yeah.
even though they told her, she always did what she wanted to do anyway. And
Yeah,
she
of course.
planned so far ahead that no one had the opportunity to really give their thoughts and ideas.
Sure.
Okay. So when we got together, we talked about gifts and what we considered the other side to the gift.
Mm.
So the other side to the gift is dependent on how the gift is defined, but it can be the opposite. And I said to Beth, what do you think is the opposite of planning? And she said, chaos.
Yeah.
I went, oh no, okay. She said, well, not planning. I said, well, what? I said, what trips you up? And she thought about it and she said, oh, probably going with the flow. And I said, yeah, it's letting go, going with the flow, and being comfortable with uncertainty.
Yes. Yes.
And I said, when you overuse your gift of planning, it leads to what you're blind to.
Yeah.
And if you can develop this into a strength through various practices, then you'll have the capacity to do both. And it won't be one or the other, it'll be a combination, which means that if things don't go according to plan, I said, Beth, you'll be able to easily head in another direction.
Yeah.
And that fascinated her. She said, really? I said, yeah.
Yeah.
So
it won't be chaos.
I had to think about practices that she could do, and I always base them on a person's life and what they're doing, so that it's not practices in life, it's practices within your life, so they actually do it.
Yeah, sure.
So we did very small and we did larger practices on letting go, because this was a big thing for her, was to let go, right? And I'll give you some of the just small practices, because the big practices, people may say, well, I'm not going to do that. But the small practices were meditation.
Yes.
Meditation is about, you have a thought, say thinking, let it go back to observing your breathing and listening for sounds in the room. That aspect of letting go starts to train your body what it feels like to be in that state of not knowing. That's one. Another one we worked on was letting go of people's mistakes and not correcting it. Because whenever she found a mistake, it was easy for her to just correct it and faster than her to talk to her people. So she had to catch herself as she was about to correct, let go of correcting the mistake, and notice how it felt in her body when she let go. So there were various practices, small practices of letting go, like letting go of telling your people the answer, solving their problems when they come to you, and noticing what that feels like in your body. So it started to open up the door. Now, the bigger picture is that she had told me she wanted to clean out her house because it was a mess. She was somewhat of a pack rat. So I said to her, would you be willing to do this as a practice? And she said, well, yeah, of course. But she said, Susan, I think the reason I've been avoiding it is because there's so many things that have so much memory for me that it's going to be hard. I said, so let's create a ritual. And we created a ritual where there are certain things she could let go of and other things that had a lot of memory. So her ritual was she'd hold that thing that had memory. She would remember a memory of it, then let it go, notice what that feel like, and she put it in one of 3 piles to give to 3 different nonprofits. Now, and she also took a photograph because she was a photographer, and later created a book of photographs of her most memorable things. Yeah. So that started to open the door. But now I'll give you the big breakthrough for her, which was she told me in conversation that as a child, she always wanted to learn trapezing. And I said, what?
Right. Who thinks that as a child?
I saw this guy in a flying trapeze and I always wanted to learn that.
Yeah.
She's the head of marketing. I'm thinking, oh my, I said, are you still interested? And she told me, yes, I am. So
Wow.
I did some research, Cindy, out here in Los Angeles. I found on the Santa Monica Pier, the New York School of Trapeze. I went there and I told the teachers what I was trying to do. They said, oh my gosh, we have executives doing this kind of thing all the time. I
My
said,
God.
really? So she enrolled in trapeze school, one-on-one. And I got to tell you, this was the biggest breakthrough because she replaced her fear of letting go with a feeling of freedom.
Yes.
And
Oh,
she started to understand now the freedom of letting go, which allowed her to get her work life balance back, but also allowed her people to contribute and feel
yeah.
like they were valued and worth something. Yeah. So
Oh, what a
that's why,
phenomenal story.
yeah. So that is why working in the body to change the way we feel creates new habits. It's like driving a car.
Yeah.
And the first time you're thinking about it, but now people can drive a car without thinking about it because it's in your body.
Yeah.
Your
Yeah.
body drives the car, not your head.
Yes. Oh, I think that's so powerful because, I when I went to school in education, it was all about behaviorism. Behaviors, change your thoughts, blah, blah, blah. But it didn't recognize all the biology and the power of biology
Yeah.
on those transformations or our subconscious drivers or all the things like else that are going on. And what I find in teaching a lot of emotional intelligence, things like that, is people don't know how to feel their body. They don't know how to feel what is
Yeah.
going on in their body. And I think that's so powerful, as you said with Beth, like think about that feeling that's in your body when you want to jump in and take control, when you want to overplan, what does that feel like? What does it feel like to have more patience or to work through that? I think
Yeah.
that's a wonderful practice.
Right. The idea is when you notice what it feels like, the idea is to be able to stop it because you're breaking a
Yes.
pattern. And if you do it
Yes.
over and over again, you break a pattern and you insert something new, which is
Yeah.
okay. I'm not. So your body then gets used to it and it
Yeah.
forms a new habit that leads to a new competency.
Yeah, for sure. So as you think about this, and you're not really traditionally training people, you're helping them to embody and practice the biology part of the changes. And so what does that look like in real leadership behavior, especially when you think about navigating uncertainty or change? So much of that is happening across industries and with leaders. How could that help them with those elements of chaos? Uncertainty, change, just a chaotic environment.
Yeah, I mean, uncertainty is something that we as human beings, as leaders, and even employees need to be able to be comfortable with.
Yeah.
And so part of that is, I'll tell you the best way for an organization, I don't think they even know this, to be able to get their people used to uncertainty, to get them used to change, is to have a budget for growth and development of your people and require them every year to learn something new.
Yeah.
Because when you're learning something new, you're in that moment of uncertainty of not knowing because it's new to you.
Yeah.
And can you imagine requiring your people to learn something new every year, come back and
Yeah.
teach the department what you
Yeah.
learned or write a report on it or something?
Yeah.
Then, when a big project like AI or automation comes along and you have to head in another direction, you more easily have developed that muscle of change within
Yes.
yourself and you can head in another direction.
Yeah.
I think the challenge today too is that we're going through some interesting times. There have been a lot of layoffs. There have been a lot of people, even executives, leaving companies because they're
Yeah.
just too stressed out. And so the first budgets that are cut, Cindy, are the budgets for growth and development. And it's got to be the last because
Yeah.
when you have fewer people, they need the capacity to be able to be the best versions of themselves.
Yes.
And
I agree.
there was a Gallup study done. This is really interesting. A Gallup study done. They do the state of the global workforce every year.
Yes.
And this past year, 2025, they discovered that 79% of employees worldwide are disengaged.
Oh,
79%. That's
holy
huge.
smokes.
Okay.
Wow.
And it's costing the global economy. I think they said 438 billion US dollars in lost productivity. 438 billion with a B. What
That's
they
big.
found, yeah, they found that it pointed to the depths underneath this, that 73% of managers were disengaged. And where
Mm,
the managers go, the people follow.
yes.
However, they also discovered that the companies that did not have a decrease in engagement, in fact, in disengagement, in fact, these are the people that were engaged, these are the companies that did well, were the companies that actually developed their managers. They continue to grow and
Yeah.
develop their managers.
Yeah.
And so we're seeing that if we continue to do this, people don't get disengaged.
Yeah.
Companies don't like have to survive, they start to thrive. And so
Yes.
it's so important. And
Yeah.
it gets your people used to change. It gets them used to being in times of uncertainty.
Yes.
And it builds that core inner strength that's so needed um, in companies today with not only leaders, but employees as well.
Yeah, you bet. You bet. And I think getting comfortable with the awkwardness of learning something new and that that's part of the journey. I think sometimes if people go into a learning experience and they're uncomfortable, they're awkward, and they're like, "Ooh, I don't like this. I'll just go back to whatever I was doing before," right? As opposed to, I'm going to work through the awkwardness and uncertainty. That's part of the process and part of the practice is doing that. And when you come outside of it, recognizing like, "Oh, I learned this. Oh, I changed." It's so reinforcing and it's so empowering too. I think being able to work with uncertainty, it strengthens that resilience muscle, which is so
Oh,
important.
yeah.
And what I think is really cool about the work that you've done is you have worked in multiple cultures and across 30 countries. So when you talk about those global statistics, you've seen that, across the universe, which I think is amazing. So when you think about that connection between gifts, so I'm going to help people work on their gifts. It doesn't matter where they're located, 30 countries across the world. How does that change then accountability and performance? Because when push comes to shove, that's what managers want to know about, right? Am I going to help perform? Am I going to perform better? Is my team going to perform better? Are we going to all be more accountable? So how do you see the connection between those two things?
Yeah. So what's interesting is gifts is part of what we consider our authentic self.
Yeah.
And we are born into our authentic self. And then life comes along. And even as babies, we are taught what to do to please our parents, to please our teachers, to please society.
Yeah, for sure.
And we lose sight of our North Star and we go into what we call our social self. And that
Mm,
is why I've had many executives say to me, Susan, I've done all the things that are expected to me of me. I've risen to the top. I'm successful. I have money. I have
yeah.
a family. I have a beautiful
Yes.
house. Why am I not happy?
Yeah.
And part of my journey as a coach, and I don't tell people this in the beginning because they come to me to change, is that I actually don't change people. I bring them back to who they are. And
Selves.
I bring them
Yeah.
from their social self to their authentic self where their gifts lie. Now, holding people accountable to their gifts is much different because the gifts are part of our authentic self. And so it's so much easier to
Mm,
own and to accept.
yeah.
And so I'll give you an example. And when you use gift-centered language or you enter through Sawubona, it allows you to coach. And today there was another Gallup study that was done that says our bosses need to be coaches. We need to move from our
Oh,
boss being a
yes.
boss
Yeah.
to a boss being a
Yes.
coach, right? Right.
Yes.
So yeah. So it's so important that okay, so this I'll give you the story. I'm
I
trying to
love
think
your
of what to
story.
call him. Okay, so I'll call him
A
Bill.
name.
So Bill is a CEO. He gave to one of his people, I'll just call him Jason, a project that came down the pipe and it needed to be done by that evening. Now he knew Jason. Now this is a company that I worked with. So they had a very gift-centered culture and people knew about gifts. They used the language of it. So he gave it to Jason because he knew Jason had the gift of follow through on commitment.
Okay.
And when Jason got something, he always followed through in his commitment. He made deadlines. So Bill was very, trusting that this would happen. He left that evening. He comes back the next morning. He gets a call from the client. And the client is kind of upset and frustrated and said, you won't believe it, but Jason did not get me that document on time. It was 2 hours late. And I needed that time to be able to prep for a board meeting this morning, which didn't give me a lot of time.
Yeah.
And Bill said, wow, I'm surprised. So he went to Jason and he said, Jason, hey, I got a call from the client. And the client said that you didn't get the project on time. You did get it to him. But you have this, one of your core gifts is follow through on your commitment. What happened?
Yeah.
And Jason looked at him and went, oh. He said, I don't call her Judy. Judy came to me yesterday, late afternoon, and she was really upset and frustrated. And I really felt for her. And I wanted to help her because I knew what to do. And I got caught up. And all of a sudden, I noticed that I didn't have enough time to finish the project by the deadline. And Bill said, and so basically what happened, he said to Jason, I think this points to your gift of compassion for others. And Jason goes, what do you mean? He said, well, you have such compassion for people that you let it override your gift of follow through on your commitment.
Yeah.
And Jason went, wow, that's true. And he said, and you overuse that gift until it led to your blind spot. So what do you think is the other side to the gift? We've talked about this before. And
Sure.
Jason went, oh, wow, probably compassion for me. He goes, yeah. It means setting boundaries. It's being able to say no in a supportive way. And Jason went, whoa. He said, so why don't we get together and let's talk about some practices you can do, because we can't have this happening again. And you have to be able to learn how to feel, to push back and be okay with it and not let you get yourself all riled up. And he said to Jason, what other things could you have done? Yeah. And Jason said, well, I could have sent Judy to somebody else. I could have given her the area to get the information. He said, yeah, all those things. He said, but you were kind of caught up in her own whirlwind. Yeah. So what happens with the gift-centered approach, it opens up for conversation. It opens up for learning. It opens up for a person owning what they have because you're recognizing within them.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a beautiful story because it does highlight that that we have multiple gifts and those multiple gifts can be in conflict. And so how do we prioritize one over the other? How do we focus on the gift that is expected of us and that we are going to be held accountable to from a performance standpoint? And then recognizing when those conflicts happen, because of course they are. Right. Those are, and that's a great example of compassion and the ability to execute and get something done and how that can shift.
So I think too, Cindy, real quick, is that
I love it.
When we develop the other side to the gift into a strength, remember there becomes balance. And so we don't overuse the gift until it becomes a weakness.
Yes, absolutely. Just like any good thing, right? Chocolate.
Yeah.
Nacho chips, all the things. So Susan, how do you typically work with organizations? So let's say, someone goes out and gets your book. They like, oh, this sounds amazing. I'm having challenges with this. How do you usually get work in and show up either as a coach or from a business perspective? What does that look like?
Yeah. So I have found that in my work, that one size does not fit all. Yes, I have frameworks. But the first month, whether it be a one-on-one coaching or it be with an organization, is for me to be able to do an assessment, because a lot of times people tell me what they think they need, and what they need is not what they need.
Yes.
Because I'm looking not at to address the symptom, I'm looking for what is causing the symptom so that the symptom disappears for good.
Yeah.
So in being able to assess them, and I do many different things to do that. For clients, I have pre-coaching assignments. I have them pick 5 people that love and adore them and who will be honest with them and tell them the truth, to tell them what their gifts and blind spots are. Because when you get it from somebody that you trust, you're more likely to accept it rather than a 360.
For sure.
When it comes to an organization, I do a process called appreciative inquiry, which we look at the best of what that organization is about, and we build on the best. But the whole idea is that the first month is very important, because I feel like I'm a doctor, and if you give me the symptoms and I give you the wrong prescription, we're going to not head in the right direction, right?
Yes.
So once that's done, I do have frameworks, but I build a program around you or the organization that we kind of work on together. And that thing becomes something that then I take the organization through, if it's a leadership path or if it's one-on-one coaching. And it really depends on budget, because I do work with companies on their budgets. A lot of companies, depending on the size, small or large, some can afford my prices and some can't. So I do work with people's budgets.
Yes, of course.
And it becomes a partnership. I find that works the best. Me telling you what to do and me partnering with you along the way and getting you to become aware of different things and then giving you different things to be able to do. I literally will create a program where you will love it because it's partly created by you too.
What's not to like? It is all about me, right? I think that's well, and it's a very, to me, a very there's a lot of transformation in the work that you do. There's cultural transformation, there's human transformation, and it's you're shifting the lens in which people see each other, which is very profound. And I'm confident takes a lot of, expertise and knowledge from your perspective, and a lot of different practices to help people overcome some of those challenges. It's a wonderful practice that you have. I'm just fascinated by the whole thing, and fascinated by this, the concept that you have, and the I see you. And I think people are starting to understand that in a way that they haven't before. What does it really mean to see someone and to see them with the authenticity and allow that authenticity to come through, and that we all are allowed to do that, and we're accepted for that. We're celebrated for that. And I think those are the things that highlight, from my perspective, what your practice is doing, which is a wonderful thing.
And I got to say that the young people, if you talk to them, and I get many of them coming up to me when I keynote at conferences and stuff, they'll say, Susan, you could put my face on the wall. That was me you were talking about. Because I want to be seen for who I am.
Yes, of course.
I want to be seen as a unique individual, not part of a mass herd.
Yes.
And it's huge for them. But I got to tell you something, Cindy, when I ask people, because the 3 needs of millennials are to feel heard, to use their gifts and have meaning and purpose in their lives. When I'm addressing an audience of all generations and I ask them, how many of you want that too? Every hand goes up.
Sure.
Because that need is not a generational need, it's a human need. And they all desire it. We were born in different generations, and generations prior to millennials didn't feel that they had a choice, and they sucked it up, and they did exactly what they were told. But guess what? They weren't happy about it. And when they had kids, they told their kids, you're not going to suck it up.
Don't do that.
You're going to go for your dream. You're going to do what it is that you want to do, and we're behind you. And this is what made millennials so entitled, by the way.
Yes. the perception is there. But I think, as you said, the generation before us has a huge impact on shaping us and how we're showing up and the things that we care about and the things that we'll tolerate or not, right? And
Right.
those things shift over time, and I think it's important to recognize that.
Yeah.
I have just loved hearing your story. I've loved hearing more about what you're bringing your gifts to the world and how you're shaping and transforming both companies, but also individuals in a very impactful way. So, as you think about just one thing from your work that you think people could remember or start to implement, again, I'm going to encourage people to go get your book to read The Perfect Storm, Leadership's Perfect Storm. But what would be one thing that you would want people to take away that you think would be helpful or practical for them right now?
Yeah. I think I would say that to build the body of a leader means that it's about doing the little practices of yourself every single day that build the foundation for you to be able to be the calm in the midst of chaos, to
Yeah.
be the eye of the hurricane so you don't get caught up in the hurricane and
Yeah.
then, and then go a different direction. And when
Sure.
I talk, it's this. A lot of times my clients will say, "Oh my gosh, I had this really challenging situation, or I was in this state of uncertainty." I said, "You can't wait until you're there. You
Yeah.
have to
Yes.
you have to prepare for it." It's like I said to
Yeah.
them, you can't, when you're thrown into the ocean, is not the time to learn to swim.
Yes.
You learn to swim so that when you're thrown
Yes.
into the ocean of uncertainty and of chaos, you can navigate the waves, the currents, the water.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so
Great
it's
metaphor.
doing the little practices like meditation to
Yeah.
still and quiet your mind so you're still present and patient for your people. It's like doing, and by the way, these practices are in the back of the book. It's like
Okay.
doing a walk around the neighborhood, walk in beauty, where
Yes.
you connect with the beauty of nature, where you receive its beauty so that you can see the beauty in your people and receive their gifts. It's
Yes.
about learning to observe. It's so much easier for us to observe nature without judgment
Yeah.
because nature
Yeah.
is pure. So if
Yeah.
we observe nature, we transfer it to then this is how we observe our people. And we catch us at our judgments because
Yes.
in observing their actions point to their gifts. It points to what drives them, what motivates them. It points to where can I put them so their gifts can blossom.
Yeah.
It's about doing the little practices like praising the gift when you
Mhm.
see it coming out so they feel valued and seen and accepted. And when you do all those things and you work on yourself every day, it's the pebble in the pond effect that
Mhm.
your goodness, if you're the pebble, I drop into the pond, it ripples out to touch every single person in your organization and beyond. And this is, yeah. And what happens is, and I found that when you accept and value your people and you care about them and believe in them, they in return will care and believe about you. And
Mm.
when there is something that comes along like a COVID, they'll have your
Yeah.
back. They'll get
Yeah.
behind you.
Yeah.
So it's not, you have to build these relationships
Yeah.
because I had one client that came to me and said, "Susan, my people just don't want to change," and hadn't built the kind of culture where people would have his back. And
Yeah.
that's so important.
Yeah. 100%. Oh, I love that. So if we go forward into this new year, I love a fresh, shiny new year because I feel like it's a reset on so much. But you said such powerful things. You said if we learn how to accept and value and care and believe in one another, what a profound effect that will have on each other, on all of us, right? And how we impact the world and that ripple effect. I love that vision for
Yeah.
2026. It's a beautiful thing. Aw.
Thank
Well,
you,
thank
Cindy.
you again for your time, for sharing your gifts with us, for the experiences that you've had, and for really putting that expertise and your knowledge and insights into the universe. It makes a difference. And I've been inspired by the work you've done and the stories you've shared with me. So you're having a ripple effect on me, and I appreciate that, Susan.
Sawubona, Cindy.
Oh, thank you so much. And to you as well. As you've listened to this episode, I invite you to continue to reflect on this question: who in your life or leadership role needs to be more fully seen? And choose one insight from this episode and take intentional action this week, whether that's a conversation, a moment of recognition, or a shift in terms of how you show up as a leader. And if this episode resonated with you, please share it with a leader who could benefit from hearing it. And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss future conversations focused on leading with purpose and with impact.